A very warm welcome to you once again. Thank you again for joining. Last time, this is where we had reached. We had created this PC on Cisco packet tracer, and we had a switch over here, and we connected them together. We finished configuring the PC. One thing we need to do time to time is to press the save button so we don't lose our changes, right? So something I probably didn't mention last time, so my apologies for that. So if you click on the PC in here and look at the configuration of this PC, the configuration we had here, if you go to the fast Ethernet side of things, so we had configured an IP address, we had specified a subnet mask. Right, for this PC, we ensured that this fast Ethernet card is on, and then we are specifying this for auto negotiation. So basically, automatically, it will realize that it's connected to 100 megabit per second switch on the other side, and it's using auto negotiation for the duplex as well. So it realizes that there's a switch at the other side, so it can use the full duplex settings. Okay, so the switch has been, the PC has been configured. Now we go on to the switch itself. Now there is obviously various ways to configure the switch, but we will try and do it from the CLI. We learn a lot more about the command line interface by trying to configure the switch in here. So now we have console access to the switch, right? So this is normally, you'll see one thing we need to understand here. The switch, depending on the type of character that you see in here, you see there's a greater than sign here. So this is the basic mode that you enter the switch. This mode, unfortunately, allows you very few commands to be running here. So what we do need to do is to type in the Cisco switch in here. Okay, we'll type in enable. Enable mode gives us a lot more options in here. It doesn't allow us to configure it, but the enable mode allows us to run a lot more commands than you would normally be able to. So you could see, and when we exit in here, let's go back here for just a second. Okay, we'll go back to the greater than sign, and when you type in enable, we'll go to the enable mode. So now we are ready to configure the switch. So to be able to configure the switch, in order to configure the switch, we need to be in the config mode. To change to the config mode, we need to type in config, or for short conf CONF will work, but you can also type in a tab key to finish the full word if you like. If you're more comfortable with using the full word, config terminal. Okay, so if you type in a tab key here, it'll type in the full word config terminal. So now we're going to configure the terminal. Once we're in the config mode, this is where all the configuration can take place, right, in the config mode. Now, of course, if we have to configure an interface, we'll have to go into the config mode first and then into the interface config mode. Okay, we'll come to that in a moment. But for now, let's look at the switch. We're in the config mode, and we want to type in or give the switch a name. So we're going to type in a host name. We're going to specify a host name for this switch, and we'll call it Cisco switch 1. Okay. So now you can see that the name here also has changed, Cisco switch 1, right? This is defining the host name. By default, the host name was just a switch. Now we know that we have defined a host name called Cisco switch _1. Now we're going to give this an IP. So to give this an IP here, we need to specify an IP for the interface VLAN 1. So we'll type in here interface VLAN 1. Now when you type in this, you can see that now this prompt has changed. The prompt went from the config mode that we saw in here to now the config-if, which is configuration of the interface. In here, I'm going to type in the IP address of this switch. So I'm going to type in here IP space address, and then I'm going to give it an IP. Now the IP, of course, needs to be in the same network as the PC. Otherwise, they cannot communicate, right? For the PC to communicate to the switch, it needs to be on the same network, right? So we're going to give it an IP address 192.168.1.50. And we're going to give it the same subnet mask as we had for the PC. Of course, the IP address is different, but the network address 192.168.1 has to be the same as the PC, but the host address is different here, right? It's 50. So the subnet mask here, coming back here to the subnet mask 255.255.255.0. Okay, so we've given it the IP address and the subnet mask in here. All right. And what we do is to bring up the interface. Okay, by default, the interface may actually end up being down. So what we need to do is to bring up the interface, and the command for bringing the interface for bringing the command for bringing this interface up is called no shutdown. Okay, so now we can see we have interface VLAN up, change state to up, right? So now the interface is up and running. And now we can exit the interface configuration mode. The next thing we need to do right now is to give a password, right? Configure an administration password. To configure an administration password, we will type in enable secret password. So we'll give it a simple password right now. But in general, of course, you want this password to be difficult, but this is just an example here. Of course, you want the password to be way more difficult than this. Definitely don't set up this password in the real world. This is just an example. Your password 123, because this is a small app that we're just trying to. You can specify a much better password than what I have here, just for demonstration purposes. Okay, now I've configured a password in here. Okay, now that we have the password up here, what we want to also be able to do is to be able to telnet into the switch. Okay, so for telnetting into the switch, I can type in here line VTY 04. That means 4 people can actually telnet. You have about 15 lines to configure in here. Some could be for telnet, some could be for SSH. We'll talk about SSH in the future. But right now, we just want to specify telnet access. So in here, now we can see the interface, the mode actually has changed from interface over here, which was earlier. We exited from there. We went back into the config mode, but now we are in the line configuration mode. Here, we're going to give it password. We'll call it, once again, very simple password here, password 123. Once again, you want a way better password than here. And once again, one thing to understand here is Telnet is not exactly the most secure way to access the switch. It's better to configure SSH. We'll come to SSH in a later lecture, but for now, let's do something very simple so just we can understand how we can do this here. You can use Telnet, I think, as a backdoor. Try to set it up, but don't use it because this Telnet sends passwords in clear text, which can be basically sniffed from the network. So that's why Telnet is not very secure. SSH is very, very secure. That's what you want to use, but you can keep Telnet as a backdoor to get in if you, for some reason, cannot get there using SSH, right? So it's always good to have a backdoor just in case, right? But make sure the password is very, very difficult to guess, obviously, right? You don't want anybody to try and hack in. At the same time, time, you don't want eavesdroppers in there sniffing your network and looking at the password, right? So use it very, very infrequently, should we say, right? In a very kind of catastrophic situation where you forgot the SSH password, or SSH password is not working for whatever reason, then that's a backdoor for you. All right, so now here, type in login, and then you're going to type in a transport input Telnet. Okay, so this configures these VTY 0 to 4, which basically are 5 lines, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we can exit this mode. Okay. And then we can exit the configuration mode as well. So now we are in the kind of the enable mode. Okay, and we can go show running config. Okay. Once again, you can go just show run and press enter, or you can go show run and press a tab key. It will fill in the whole thing for you, and you will enter in here. Then you can see the full configuration of the switch. Okay, so far we have configured a host name here, Cisco switch 1. We have configured a secret in here, which was the password. You can see the password has been encrypted. Okay, which is a great thing, right? The password has been encrypted for us. Otherwise, we haven't configured any of the fast Ethernet ports right now in any shape or form. So by default, they belong to VLAN 1. And then we have a couple of gigabit interfaces in here. And then we have configured on VLAN 1 an IP address that we specified and the subnet mask. Okay, and we configured line 0 to 4 for telnet access. Unfortunately, here the password is now showing up in clear text. There is a command that you can run in which it will encrypt this password as well. And you can see that line VTY 5 to 15 are still available for configuration. So technically, you can have some VTY lines for Telnet, and then you can specify SSH on the other lines if you like. Now what we want to do is to save this configuration. So we're going to save this configuration by doing a write memory. Okay. So building configuration, so this is saved. If you don't save the configuration, what's going to happen is that if you reboot this switch, all the configuration would have been lost. So just make sure you do save the configuration. Now that we have this configuration in place, what we would like to do is to, first of all, go to the PC here and see if we can ping this IP address of the switch, right? So let's go in here onto the PC. Let's go onto the desktop in here, open a command prompt. Let's see if everything is configured, then we should be able to ping the switch 192.168.1.50. Okay, you can see the reply, we lost one ping. That's normal, so don't worry about it because it takes some time before the whole thing starts to work. So we have configured telnet access, right? So let's go back here, let's close this here, the command prompt, and let's go back. There is an option to telnet from here, telnet or SSH. So in this particular case, we'll use telnet. We have both options available to us, and then we'll go 192.168.1.50. When we do this, press enter, connect, asking us for password. Password was password 123, made it very, very simple. You can see we are into the switch. I can go into now the enable mode and put in the password, the enable password, which just happens to be the same in this particular case. And I can go show run. I want to save the overall configuration so we don't lose the configuration of what we have done so far. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this session, and please give us some feedback how you like this session and what you'd like to see in the future. And have a great day, and please take care.